All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations 2010 Autobot Drift, a very cool figure from the early Generations line, and a mold that I've always really liked. Now, I'm kind of going to be doing this as a review for both Drift and also Generations Blur, just because, they're mostly the same mold, but just for simplicity's sake, I'll just focus on Drift for the sake of the video, but I'll kind of show off the differences between the two of them and all that. But yeah, he's a very nice looking vehicle mode here. I love the painted detail on the side there with the kanji. He's got his tail lights picked out. He's got clear inserts for the headlights there. Nice paint on the front grille and on the hood here. He does have the painted windshield on the back here, which doesn't quite match the clear plastic, but at least it's painted. I don't mind it. It's a close enough match, I would say. He does roll fairly well, which is nice to see, and comes with several weapons here. He comes with two blades here and then the long sword, and amazingly these do all have places to seamlessly store in both modes, which is pretty great to see. For the little blades here, again, this is kind of just supposed to be like during part of the transformation, but basically you want to take the doors here, and then each of these, I always forget which is which. I guess it probably corresponds to the angle of the door there, but they just slot right into the doors there. And then in the case of him, again, this is a little bit different on Blur, but you actually fold down the handles here, so there's the clearance for them to sit in vehicle mode, and then you just fold the door back up, and those store nice and completely unobtrusively out of the way, which is always great to see. I'm always a stickler about weapon storage, and a lot of times nowadays they just kind of are content to peg things onto the top of the vehicle, and that's always bugged me. And then for the long sword here, he's got this clip here, and then this clip on his on the back of his waist, and I guess notionally you're kind of supposed to slide it in, but you kind of just press it in if you have to. His sword is a softer plastic. I mean, the little ones are too, but since they're smaller, they hold their shape a little bit better. And honestly, this one's not so bad either. It's just if you really had it in a pose like this for a while, it might end up bending over time, but it still is a nice looking weapon there. And I love that it actually stores completely unobtrusively on the vehicle mode. And in the case of Blur, I'm not going to bother to take off his little guns because we'll show them off in robot mode, but basically instead of the swords, he's got three guns, including this nice long sniper rifle here, which stores underneath. And then some of the other differences for them, obviously the spoiler is different, and then the head sculpts in robot mode obviously are different. But yeah, no, it's a really nice vehicle mode in both color schemes. Obviously, if you want like an accurate G1 Blur, he didn't turn into an Earth car. This was, again, as I've mentioned in the last few videos, around the time in Generations that they were not wanting to do like abstract alt modes like Cybertronian things. So they gave Blur and Earth car mode, and it looks nice. I do love the sort of the way that the blues kind of tone up to get lighter and lighter to the white stripe there on the top. I think that's a really nice color scheme. Mine's gotten a few scuffs throughout the years, but still, it's a very cool looking car here. And it is funny to me that even though this version of Blur isn't based on anything, that they still bothered to resculpt the spoiler, because they could have conceivably just given him the same spoiler as Drift, and it's not like the car is based on any rendition of Blur. I mean, it's kind of based on his look in the IDW comics, but that's mostly for robot mode, not for vehicle mode, so they could have given him the big spoiler. But I do appreciate that the vehicle modes have some difference there. But yeah, no, great looking car mode on both of them, honestly. The one problem I do have with this figure, which is the big lasting reason why he's not really in my canon display, is when you get into comparisons, unfortunately he does not scale super well with anything anymore, just because the vehicle mode was kind of big for the time, and then figures have gotten kind of smaller throughout the years. So here he is with Sideswipe, which doesn't look terrible. He's a little bit bigger than he ought to be, but it's kind of passable. But when you bring in the sort of smaller size scale for the 84 Autobots, you can kind of see what I'm saying here, where it's ooh, this is a challenging scale to accept here. It's not, you could headcanon that he turns into an actually rather large car, but look at him next to a semi truck here is ooh, this is a little bit ridiculous looking. But I don't know. Like I said, this is probably the best version of Drift we've gotten, and I'd love to see a new one, but this figure is still really good. It's just really the scale kind of bugs me here, which is not an issue with the figure itself. Really, that's just how, you know, it just doesn't line up with figures that have like gotten smaller and smaller throughout the years. So, you know, it's not really a knock on the mold itself. It's just the reason why I don't really, you know, have him in my canon display. But I don't know. I do like this figure a lot. So, and it's not like we have any rumors or anything of a new Drift. So maybe I'll recanonize him and put him in my canon display. But whatever. Either way, that's what he looks like with some other figures. And then I guess, you know, just for the sake of with Blur here he is with the Studio Series mold here, so you can see what he looks like. Obviously much more G1 accurate, but that's what they look like with him. But yeah, to get onto transformation, notionally you could leave the sword on throughout the whole thing. I'm going to take it off for simplicity's sake, but it is where it stores in robot mode as well. He's got some really fun stuff going on in his transformation. First thing you want to do is just untab the door panels here. They've got this little hook tab here that goes like kind of behind the hands here, so like sometimes it's a little bit easier to pull the hands out just to get the door unlocked. But basically for this, pretty stiff there, you just want to kind of like leave them out to the side like this just to create clearance for other things, but we'll mess with those again later. And then for the whole back section here, you want to split this whole back section, and it's a little bit harder on Drift than it is with Blur because he's got this extra locking tab with the spoiler here. But yeah, you just want to split what will be the legs there, and then kind of bring the foot out and around the windshield, and then unfold this whole thing like this with this really cool little mechanism here, and then take this section of the roof that has the foot on it, and it will actually like double hinge up and then sit into place like that to create the legs. And I've always really thought that leg transformation was really neat. It's a very like the joints are all kind of like very satisfying, and just the simple nature of it just to reshape the legs has always been kind of fun. Then we can take these bits here. I usually on him will, you know, fold out the handles here so they're actually like ready to draw for the robot. And then you take these little, you know, window pieces, and they are clear plastic, so be kind of careful with them, but they do fold to the inside here just to kind of clean up these side skirts a little bit. And then they just kind of come down on these hinges so they sit on the side of his hips there like that. Then you want to take the windshield piece and just kind of like unfold it like that so that you have the clearance to take the front of the car, untab it, and then take these panels that will double hinge onto the sort of like fender sections there. And then we can rotate these up like that, and then kind of bring down the arms on these little joints here. And then the arms themselves will unfold out of the sort of fender piece there and bring the wheel with them, and then reveal that detailing on the shoulder. And then you just take the chest piece, use that tab right there just to go into the slot on his chest, and there we have Drift in his robot mode. And yeah, it's a really fun, satisfying transformation, a lot of neat tricks going on, and it makes for a great looking robot mode. Like, yeah, he's a little bit kibbly in terms of the stuff that hangs off of him, but it's very intentional in where it's placed. Like, it sits on him really well, which is something that I've always appreciated in terms of articulation. Yeah, the head is on a ball joint, right? Oh, I guess it's not on a ball joint. It's on a swivel and a hinge there. So yeah, you can rotate the head around, but it also has a hinge so it can kind of look up and down, which is nice to see. The shoulders are on ball joints, which can rotate around like that. You can use that transformation joint a little bit, although it starts bumping into the head, you know, like not too far in. Like, he can't really get his arms too far out to the side, but whatever. He's got a bicep swivel. He's got a double jointed elbow for transformation, although the wheel on his arm does kind of bump into his shoulder stuff. So it's like, yeah, you can do it, but it is, you know, you have to finagle it a little bit. His wrists are on ball joints, which is nice, especially for a sword wielding character. It makes getting poses with the sword a lot easier, so they can kind of fold in and rotate around. Nothing at the waist, unfortunately, which was not really necessary for transformation. Like, the body doesn't reshape at all, so there definitely could have been a waist joint fit in there, but whatever. These bits are just on ball joints, and then that hinge, so you can kind of maneuver them out of the way. The hips are also on ball joints, which can go forward and back and out to the side. You have to kind of move the hip skirts out of the way, obviously. He's got a thigh swivel, maybe like a degree under 90 of bend at the knee, and it's also kind of a visually high knee, but whatever. And then for the feet, you can't get any ankle tilt, but his feet are like pointy enough that it doesn't matter so much, but you can kind of like adjust the angle of these a little bit. You know, there's stuff that you can do to kind of, you know, like bring the foot forward and have it still look good, but it's kind of an unusual joint setup there. And then obviously we can have him hold his sword here, and he looks pretty good. And what amazingly, despite the fact that he's got all this kibble and stuff like that, because he's got those ball joints at the wrists, you can actually get him to have like a two-handed sword pose. Like he's pretty much just like holding it up like that, but still, it's pretty impressive that the figure with all of its like junk on the shoulders and the hips and everything like that can still accomplish that kind of pose fairly easily. And then in terms of storage for the big sword, you can just use that same clip that he had before, but it is on like a double hinge setup, so you can kind of bring it out a little bit, so it's not like as firm to his back. Like you can kind of angle it back a little bit. It's kind of a shame that this doesn't have some sort of like rotation to help get it out of the way even more, but still, it's a pretty good storage option there, although it does kind of just poke up right above his head, which looks a little bit silly, but whatever. And then for the little blades, obviously they just store where they are, but you can pull those out and give those to him as well, which is a great look there. And I love that, you know, despite the fact that these are soft plastic, they are painted silver. It would have been nice if the big sword was painted silver too, but you know, what can you do? Still, I do really like the way his accessories integrate and actually have places to go in both modes, which is not even something you see on a lot of modern figures. But yeah, to get onto comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Sideswipe, just so you can see what he looks like with an average modern deluxe there. And, you know, I don't really have any issues with the way he scales in robot mode. He's a little bit tall there, but, you know, Drift's kind of a tall character, so that doesn't bother me at all. It's really just the vehicle mode scale that kind of bugs me about this mold. And then, you know, just for some other comparisons, here he is with Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, just because we showed them off together earlier. And, you know, that works well enough for me. And then, of course, here he is with Generations Blur, just so you can see all the differences there. Really, in terms of the molding, it is pretty much just the head sculpt there. Like he's got these little like vents on the shoulders, but this is just painted detail, so you know it's still the same mold there. The only difference in terms of molding is the spoiler, the head, and the weapons, obviously. And yeah, speaking of which, if we look at Blur here, he's got this nice IDW comics inspired head here, which is, you know, maybe not my preferred Blur kind of overall head shape for my definitive Blur, but it is a really, really nice mold and definitely looks a lot like the design from the comics. And then, like I said, instead of the swords, he comes with these guns instead. He comes with the big sniper rifle, which he can hold. And again, because he's got this sort of like, you know, versatility with his posing, the sniper rifle here has a hinged little handle here, so he can actually hold it with two hands too, which is really impressive. You know, you can't really get him in any super realistic looking like sniper poses, but still it's impressive that he can even kind of accomplish that there. And then, you know, you can also like sort of use this joint in the shoulders too if you want to like bring the arm forward without having the shoulder pad stick up too, which obviously works for Drift as well. One thing about Blur is that the side panels on mine, the ball joints, have gotten a lot floppier throughout the years, which hasn't really affected Drift, fortunately, but it is a little bit annoying on him. And then for his little side weapons here, he, instead of the little swords, has little guns instead, which don't have to fold up or anything. And then the other kind of neat feature of these is if you pull both the weapons out, he actually has these little slots on the end of his gun here that you can attach these to. Forget exactly how they have to go. Do they have to like sit up like this? I think it's like, I can't remember if it's like if you're supposed, you can do it this way so that it's like a weird sort of like triple barrel sniper rifle situation, but I think you're mostly supposed to do it the other way so that instead of like extra guns, these just become a kind of like a stand for the sniper rifle with the handles there, which is a really cool feature. Again, it's kind of hard to get him into a pose where he can do it. Like he can tilt his head up a little bit, but not that much. Like it's so yeah, no, you can kind of get some semblance of a sniper rifle pose where he's actually lying on the ground and has the stand going, but it doesn't really look great. But still, it's neat that it has that functionality, and it's not like it really takes away anything from the weapons there to have those tabs and slots. So pretty cool. But yeah, no, they're both good versions of this mold. I do tend to prefer Drift a little bit, but you know that's mostly just because of how my Blur mold has held up throughout the years. But still, it's nice to see all the differences and where they decided to put the painted details and stuff like that. But yeah, no, this is a pretty cool figure and a pretty cool mold in general. It was clearly designed to be Drift, but I think it works pretty well as the IDW Blur as well. But yeah, no, fantastic figure. I guess, again, really the only lasting problem I have with it is just that by modern standards, the scale doesn't really work, which again is not really the fault of this figure in particular. It's just sort of, you know, kind of how it worked out with modern figures, but still pretty cool toy. And definitely I would recommend picking it up if you ever have the chance to mess with this mold. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers 2010 Generations Autobot Drift.